We tend to think of intelligence as a very loud thing. It is the voice in our heads solving problems, debating choices, or analyzing the past. We treat intelligence like a possession, something we have, something that makes us distinct from the chair we are sitting on or the air we are breathing. We assume that to be intelligent, you have to be you, a conscious individual with a name and a plan. But if you sit very still, even for a moment, that assumption starts to slip. Your heart is currently maintaining a perfect rhythm without you thinking about it. Your immune system is identifying and neutralizing threats you will never see. Outside your window, ecosystems are balancing math equations of energy and survival that no supercomputer could perfectly model. There is a sophisticated, responsive, and creative force at work in reality, and it seems to function perfectly fine without a manager. In this video, we are going to look at 11 specific forms of intelligence. Some are biological, some are artificial, some are planetary, and some are so vast we rarely notice that we are moving inside them. The goal isn't to define everything, it's to see if we can loosen the grip on the idea that human thinking is the only game in town. I invite you to listen with an open mind. Let's begin with the form we know best, or at least the one we spend the most time with. This is the specific frequency of intelligence that humans specialize in. It's the ability to take the raw chaos of the world, trees, hunger, weather, time, and turn them into symbols, words, and stories. We don't just experience the cold, we create a concept called winter, and we plan for it. We don't just see a lion, we draw a lion on a cave wall to teach our children how to survive. This ability to detach from the immediate moment and live inside a mental simulation is our greatest superpower. It allowed us to build civilizations, write laws, and split the atom. But here is the crack in the foundation. We assume that because we have this narrator in our heads, the narrator is the one doing the intelligent work. We say, I had a thought. But if you look closely, you didn't really make the thought. You didn't go into a mental factory, assemble the syntax, choose the vocabulary, and push it out. The thought just appeared. Even right now, as you listen to these words, your mind is processing meaning instantly. You aren't trying to understand English. The understanding is happening to you. This suggests that even in humans, intelligence is less like a muscle we flex and more like a stream we step into. The self is often just the person reading the news report after the event has already happened. This brings us to form 2, embodied intelligence. If humans are the masters of abstraction, animals are the masters of presence. A hawk diving for a field mouse isn't calculating trajectory using physics equations. It isn't worried about whether it's a good hawk or a bad hawk. It is simply a perfect biological expression of focus. This is intelligence without the burden of a storyteller. We often mistake this for simplicity. We think because a dog can't write a poem, it's less intelligent. But watch a dog read a room. Watch how an animal senses danger before it arrives. This is a deep, ancient form of processing that runs through the nervous system, bypassing the need for language entirely. Embodied intelligence solves complex survival problems without ever pausing to ask why. It is effective precisely because it isn't distracted by an ego, and this creates a fascinating tension for us. As humans, we have layered symbolic intelligence on top of our embodied intelligence. We have the raw instincts of an animal, but we also have the crushing weight of analyzing those instincts. We are the only creatures who can be safe in a warm room and yet be terrified by a thought about next Tuesday. The first step in this map is to realize that our specific brand of intelligence, the loud storytelling kind, is not the definition of intelligence. It is just one layer. It's a tool. And underneath it, there is something older, quieter, and much faster at work. But what happens when we strip away the biology entirely? What happens when intelligence doesn't need a heart, a brain, or a body to function? This brings us to a form that is currently rewriting the human story and generating a lot of anxiety while doing it. Form 3 is algorithmic intelligence. For most of history, if you encountered something that could speak, reason, or create art, you knew it had a soul. You knew there was a someone behind the words. But we have now built systems that can diagnose diseases, write code, and compose sonnets without having any internal experience of what those things mean. This is often called competence without comprehension. Think about a calculator. It doesn't know what the number 7 is. It doesn't feel the satisfaction of solving an equation. Yet, it never makes a mistake. Modern AI is essentially that calculator scaled up to infinite complexity. It is finding patterns in vast oceans of data that no human brain could hold. This is unsettling because it decouples intelligence from consciousness. It proves that you don't need to be alive to be smart. You don't need to feel pain to solve a problem. It forces us to ask, is the ability to reason a spiritual gift, or is it just a complex mechanic? And if a machine can replicate our reasoning without our soul, then what part of us is truly irreducible? But machines aren't the only ones proving that intelligence doesn't need a single center. Form 4 is collective intelligence. If you look at a single termite, it is not particularly impressive. It follows very simple chemical trails. It has almost no memory. It has no blueprint for a cathedral. Yet, a colony of termites can build a structure 20 feet high with internal air conditioning, fungal gardens for food, and defensive fortifications. Where is the architect? There isn't one. The intelligence does not live inside the termite, it lives between them. It emerges from the connections. This is swarm intelligence. It's what happens when thousands of simple agents interact to create a genius-level system. We see this in flocks of starlings turning in the sky like liquid smoke. We see it in the neural networks of our own brains. Remember, a single neuron isn't smart. A single neuron is just a switch. It's only when billions of them fire together that you appear. This suggests that intelligence might not be a thing at all, but a shape. It's a property of networks. When enough connections form, intelligence simply wakes up. And here is the humbling part. Humans are part of this too. We like to think we are individual pilots steering our lives. But look at the stock market. Look at language. Look at how cities grow. No single person controls these things. We are all contributing to massive, invisible intelligences, corporations, nations, economies, that move and adapt in ways no individual can predict or control. We are often just the neurons in a much larger brain, so we have intelligence without a soul, AI, and intelligence without a leader, the swarm. Both of these forms function perfectly well without an I to claim credit for them. They are efficient, adaptive, and creative. But if we zoom out even further, we stop looking at biological creatures or computer chips. We start seeing that the environment itself, the dead stage we think we are standing on, might be the smartest actor in the room. If you take a watch apart, you will find springs, gears, and glass. You will not find time. Time is not in the pieces. It is something that arises when the pieces work together. This brings us to Form 5, Emergent Intelligence. This is perhaps the most magical property of our universe. It is the principle that says if you gather enough simple things together and give them a few basic rules, they will eventually start doing something complex, unpredictable, and surprisingly smart. We see this in physics. A single water molecule is simple, but put a billion of them together and you get fluid dynamics, waves, currents, whirlpools. You get a system that can erode mountains. The intelligence isn't in the molecule, it's in the interaction. Scientists have modeled this using simple computer grids. If you give little dots on a screen just 3 rules, like turn on if your neighbor is on, or turn off if it's too crowded, those dots don't just sit there. They start creating patterns. They build gliders, pulsars, and moving structures that look like they are alive. They look like they are trying to go somewhere. This suggests that intelligence is an inevitability. You don't need a designer to reach down and breathe life into matter. You just need complexity. If you let a system run long enough, it will teach itself how to be smart. But this phenomenon doesn't just happen in physics. It happens in the invisible structures we build every day. Form 6 is systemic intelligence. We like to believe that humans invented language. But did any single person invent English? Did a committee sit down and decide the grammar rules? No. Language is a living system. It evolves, it adapts, it discards words that aren't useful, and invents new ones when the environment changes. It acts exactly like a biological organism, but it lives entirely in the space between our minds. We don't really control language. We host it. The same is true for economies, markets, and cultures. We often feel frustrated because the system feels like it has a mind of its own. That's because it does. An institution, whether it's a government, a corporation, or a religion, wants to survive. It has defense mechanisms. It has goals that are often totally different from the goals of the people working inside it. Have you ever noticed how a bureaucracy can act in a way that is logical for the system, but insane for the individual? That is systemic intelligence protecting itself. It uses humans the way a coral reef uses coral polyps to build the structure, maintain the flow, and ensure its own longevity. This is a humbling realization. We tend to view intelligence as our servant, a tool we use to dominate the world. But in the realm of emergent and systemic intelligence, the roles are reversed. We are the substrate. We are the hardware on which these massive, invisible software programs are running. This creates a strange feeling of being swept along by currents much larger than our own lives. We are carried by historical forces, economic tides, and linguistic patterns that were here before we were born and will be here after we die. So, if intelligence can emerge from dead matter, and if it can exist in the invisible systems between us, we have to ask the ultimate question of scale. If we zoom out as far as we possibly can, past the systems, past the swarms, past the biology, does the container itself have an intelligence? Is the planet just a rock we live on? Or is it the thinking entity and we are just the thoughts? Let's step off the human stage entirely. We are used to thinking of the Earth as a backdrop, a giant spherical stage where the drama of life happens. We think of the planet as geology, rock, water, magma, dead things. But if you look at the data over millions of years, the Earth behaves suspiciously like a living organism. Form 7 is planetary intelligence. Consider the atmosphere. It is an unstable mixture of gases that shouldn't stay mixed. Based on the laws of chemistry, oxygen is highly reactive and should have locked itself into the rocks billions of years ago. But it hasn't. It stays at a steady 21%. If it dropped to 15%, we would suffocate. If it rose to 25%, massive fires would consume the forests. It stays in the Goldilocks zone. Who is adjusting the dial? There is no engineer in the sky turning a valve. The entire biosphere, the plankton in the ocean, the trees in the taiga, the weathering of rocks, acts as a single, massive thermostat. This is the Gaia hypothesis. It suggests that the Earth itself is a physiological system. It regulates its temperature, its salinity, and its chemistry to keep life possible. This is intelligence on a timescale so slow we mistake it for geology. But make no mistake, a system that can self-correct over 4 billion years, surviving asteroid impacts and solar changes, is far more robust than any human invention. We are not passengers on a rock, we are cells in a planetary body that knows how to keep itself alive. But if the planet is tilted toward life, what about the universe that holds it? Form 8 is cosmic intelligence. This is where physics touches the edge of philosophy. When cosmologists look at the fundamental numbers that govern our reality, the strength of gravity, the weight of an electron, the speed of light, they find something unsettling. These numbers are perfectly balanced to allow complexity to exist. If the force of gravity were slightly stronger, the universe would have collapsed into a black hole immediately after the Big Bang. If it were slightly weaker, stars would never have formed and the universe would be a cold, dark soup of hydrogen. Against all odds, the universe seems rigged for structure. Now, you don't need to believe in a religious creator to feel the weight of this. You just have to look at the process. We started with a cloud of hot gas. We gave it 13.8 billion years. And now that gas has turned into eyes, hands, mathematics, and love. The hydrogen became the astronomer. This implies that intelligence is not an accident that happened to the universe. It is a function of the universe. Just as an apple tree produces apples, the universe produces consciousness. It is what the system does. We often feel like strangers here. We feel like tiny, accidental sparks in a cold, indifferent void. But cosmic intelligence suggests the opposite. It suggests that the potential for you, for your mind, your capacity to wonder, was baked into the laws of physics from the very first second. The universe is not a dead room. It is a seed that is slowly unfurling. And this changes everything about how we see ourselves. If intelligence is the fundamental direction of the cosmos, then you are not an anomaly. You are the universe finally waking up to look at itself. But this leads us to the final, most intimate frontier. If intelligence is everywhere, then what is the specific thing looking out from behind your eyes right now? Is it separate from all of this, or is it the same light, just shining through a different window? We have looked at intelligence in machines, in swarms, in the earth, and in the laws of physics. But there is one question that usually stops the conversation cold. Are we alone? Form 9 is extraterrestrial intelligence. When we search for aliens, we usually make a mistake. We look for versions of us. We look for radio waves, math, and starships. We look for symbolic intelligence in a different skin. But if evolution on Earth produced something as strange as the octopus, a creature with a brain in each arm, thinking in a decentralized way we can barely comprehend, imagine what a different galaxy produces. True alien intelligence might not be about building rockets. It might be biological technology we don't recognize. It might be a civilization that lives entirely inside simulations, or one that merges with its star. The existence of extraterrestrial intelligence, even as a possibility, serves a crucial purpose for us. It shatters the mirror. It forces us to accept that our logic, our morality, and our way of processing time are likely just local customs. We are not the standard measurement of the universe. We are just one culture on a small island. But as we look outward, something strange happens. We realize that the further we search for intelligence out there, the more we are forced to examine the instrument we are using to look. This brings us to Form 10, Transpersonal Intelligence. You have likely felt this before, even if you didn't have a name for it. Musicians call it the pocket. Athletes call it the zone. It is that moment when the I, the little voice in your head that worries about the bills, suddenly goes quiet. In this state, you become smarter. Your reactions are faster. Your creativity flows without effort. You are writing, but you aren't thinking about the words. You are running, but you aren't managing the muscles. Psychologists call this flow. It is a state where the individual ego steps aside and a deeper, faster form of processing takes over. For centuries, mystics and artists have claimed that in these moments they aren't creating the idea, they are receiving it. They feel like an antenna. This suggests that intelligence is not something generated by the brain, but something the brain tunes into. When you quiet the noise of the self, you don't become stupid, you become connected. You tap into a reservoir of insight that feels older and wider than your personal history. Which leads us to the final and most fundamental form. Form 11 is non-dual intelligence. This is the hardest one to talk about because it cannot be seen. It is the thing doing the seeing. Every form of intelligence we have discussed so far is a process. It's a thing doing something, a brain thinking, a computer calculating, a planet regulating. But underneath all of that activity, there is something else. There is awareness. There is a simple, silent presence that is aware of the thought, aware of the computer, aware of the stars. This presence doesn't think, it doesn't struggle, it just is. In many ancient traditions, this is considered the ultimate intelligence. It is the screen on which the movie of reality plays. It is the capacity of the universe to witness itself. Think about it. You can doubt your thoughts, you can doubt your feelings, you can doubt the world outside, but you cannot doubt that you are. That sense of I am, stripped of your name, your job, and your history, is the fundamental spark. And here's the twist. That spark appears to be the same in everyone. The I am you feel right now is the same I am a person felt 10,000 years ago. It is the same light shining through a different prism. If this is true, then intelligence isn't something you have to hoard. It isn't a weapon you use to defend your corner of reality. It is the fabric of reality itself. You are not a tiny, isolated mind trying to figure out a giant universe. You are the universe, focused into a single point of view, experiencing its own intelligence through you. The separation was the illusion all along. So where does this leave us? We started this journey asking how to define intelligence. We looked for it in brains, in code, in swarms, and in stars. But the more we looked, the less it resembled a definition, and the more it resembled a presence. We usually walk through life feeling like our intelligence is a heavy backpack we have to carry alone. We feel the pressure to figure it all out, to be the smartest person in the room, to solve the puzzle of our own lives before time runs out. It feels like a frantic, lonely effort. But if the termite doesn't worry about the blueprint and the planet doesn't worry about the math, maybe we can put the backpack down. The evidence suggests that you are not a lonely generator of thoughts in a dead universe. You are a receiver. You are a participant. You are standing in the middle of a stream that has been flowing for billions of years. The intelligence that beats your heart is the same intelligence that spins the galaxy. It is the same intelligence that guides the bird and structures the atom. You don't have to invent it. You don't have to earn it. You just have to be quiet enough to let it move through you. You are not alone inside reality. You are what reality is doing right now. And perhaps the smartest thing we can do is simply stop struggling, take a breath, and let ourselves be carried. Thanks for watching.